Hey everybody, it's Evan Troxel here of ARCASpeak, and Cormac and I just got back from the 2019 AIA Conference on Architecture in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we were at the Las Vegas Convention Center for a few days and did a couple tours and things like that, and just generally got around the city and saw a bunch of cool stuff. And overall, I think it was a great conference. And I'm here today to do a quick intro for the first half, let's call it part one, of an over 3-hour recording that we did at the ARCAT booth on the expo floor at the AIA Conference on Architecture. We had a lot of great guests. I'm going to kind of quickly go through a bunch of those, but before I do, I wanted to just provide an intro of what the podcast was, because it wasn't just the ARCASpeak podcast at the show. We actually did a joint podcast with 2 other podcasts, so 3 of us in total, and the event was labeled ARCast because we were recording under the big red A at the ARCAT booth. So because Cormac is probably halfway across the U.S. driving back toward the East Coast from the West Coast on his son's graduation extravaganza trip that he's doing, I'm here doing this solo. So let's see. We had 2 other podcasts. We had the Entree Architect podcast with Mark R. LePage, and we had the Inside the Firm podcast with Lance Psycho. And we had the ARCASpeak podcast with Cormac and myself. So before I jump into who the guests were, I have a little bit of news that I wanted to cover real quick. So 2 things. The first thing is that coming up in about 2 weeks from when this podcast goes live, there's going to be a tech conference at USC, the University of Southern California. It's called the BIM Bop. It's the 13th annual BIM Bop put on by Doug Noble and Karen Kenzik of USC, the architecture department there. This is a fantastic tech conference. It's $55 to go, and that includes lunch. So I wanted to do a quick plug for that. We will definitely have a link for that in the show notes. The second thing is a reminder about our after show from the last episode where we had Peter Lavelle from the AIA Redwood Empire talking about the PSR1 design build competition. So a link to that in the show notes. I would love it if you could go check that out. ARCASpeak is going to be jurying that competition along with a couple of other jurors. So we're really looking forward to that coming up in about a month. Definitely check in on that, and I hope you would even register. It's a cool design build competition. It looks like a great way to get some exposure. Those are the 2 items of news. I wanted to talk real quick about who's going to be on this episode before we jump in. So we had Scott Reynolds of Upcodes AI. We had Shane Scranton of Iris VR. We had Mike Riscica of Young Architect. Robert Yuen of Monograph. Reg Prentice from Tonic DM. And then in our last section of the podcast, we had the infamous Nick Renard from Dig Architecture. And we had Jared Zurn from NCARB. So there was a lot of information packed into this episode. Like we said, it was a 3-hour-long recording extravaganza. I've broken it into 2 parts, so the next part will come out in the next episode. I hope you like it, and one of the cool things that I've done on this episode that I think is a little bit different is I have included chapter markers for each of the different interviews. So if you're using a podcast player like Overcast, which is my favorite podcast player, you'll see those pop up in the episode, and you can actually skip from section to section. So take advantage of that if that's your thing, because I realize that it is a longer episode. The next one will be a little bit shorter because this one is probably a little bit more than halfway through. But anyway, really had a great time recording this. It was super fun. Cormac said likewise. It was definitely something that we're looking forward to doing potentially again next year at the AIA conference in Los Angeles, my hometown. Anyway, let's get on with the episode, and I'll talk to you at the end.
It's the love fest.
Cuddle up, brothers.
Let's do this. This is the first annual ARCast. We're sitting here at the ARCAT booth here at AIA Conference 2019.
Under the big red A.
Under the big red A. I am Mark R. LePage with Entree Architect Podcast.
And I'm Troxel with the ARCASpeak podcast.
Cormac Phelan with the ARCASpeak podcast.
I'm Lance Psycho with Inside the Firm podcast.
And I think first we should thank Casey and Bill from ARCAT for offering us the space to do this. They've offered many years in a row. We finally took them up on it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. It's been this is going to be cool.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going to do a 3-hour marathon podcast here.
Wait, 3 hours.
Yeah, and I had just been talking for 2 hours straight before this, so
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is good. We'll see how this goes. We're working.
Probably got to get another one.
Working. We have a bunch of guests scheduled. We'll see how that works out because I think it's going to be complicated enough with just the four of us here, and then we're going to bring in some guests and have some conversation as well. So,
Yep.
We'll see how it goes. Why don't we start off with Scott? Because Scott's here. This is a fully off-the-cuff, casual conversation here. So we've invited a bunch of guests to talk about what they're passionate about. You have about 10 minutes. Why don't you talk about who you are, what do you do, and how are you trying to make the world a better place through what you're doing?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me on the show. So I'm Scott Reynolds, one of the co-founders at UpCodes, and we focus on building regulations. So building some new technology and new workflows for professionals to navigate through the compliance process. The first product, UpCodes Web, we consolidate building regulations online, make it a little bit more searchable, easier to collaborate with. And secondly, UpCodes AI. I'm starting to think about automating the building code compliance process in BIM models. So looking at the 3D model and creating a spell check for compliance.
Nice. That's a cool way
So
to talk about it.
can you get a little bit more specific about it? So would an example of that be like, okay, we're going to do an ADA clearance check, like that sort of thing?
Exactly. So it's kind of like what we like to think of like a consultant looking over your shoulder, just a gut check for exactly like you said, ADA. So that was one of the most popular or more popular requested features, and that's where we focused, at least in the beginning. So just like you said, like a turning radius, push-pull clearance, giving you a heads up if we can identify there might be an issue, a potential code issue there, just as a second check.
Yeah, very cool. I've been asking everybody on my podcast, I've been doing separate interviews, question about how they think as automation, there's a lot of talk right now. We're heading into election seasons and stuff about automation and what that means for job markets and everything. But that's part of the job. That's where I like automation coming in because I don't want to do that stuff. I want a computer to do it and tell me where we're wrong. And then, so my guys can spend more time on design, or we can spend more time in the field. So, very, very cool stuff. What inspired you to create this?
So my background's in architecture. I studied architecture at Syracuse University, worked abroad for a little bit, and then worked in New York for a little while. And code compliance was one of my main focuses and also the bane of my day-to-day job. And I was kind of blown away. There was no software, no kind of structured workflow to manage compliance. And I was surprised, but also feeling that pain firsthand. And that's when I reached out to my brother, who was a software engineer, and said, "Hey, look, can we introduce some kind of software to alleviate some of this pain?" And that's really what inspired that first iteration of UpCodes.
Very cool. I know we've used it a few times. Have you guys used it yet?
Very, very briefly. Scott and I have been talking a lot on Entree Architects through the Facebook group, and we just talked yesterday on Facebook Live. And so I've learned a lot about it. And super interesting, and I love what the future of UpCodes is all about.
Yeah, well, thanks for those conversations. And
and I've used the online version of it. I can't get my IT department to actually let me launch the AI for it, but as I slowly start getting people within our office to actually start seeing it and actually how to use it, I'm fighting the fight from the rear, so that everybody's like, oh, we got to get this, because that it's going to make our life so much simpler. Because yes, I mean, codes in large scale projects like I work on are the bane of my existence, and so if I can at least have something that's helping me out in the background, look at a baseline of where I'm meeting or not meeting code, that's great. Because I mean, everybody. Like I was, I talked on our podcast not too long ago, we're always looking for, at least the baseline, and then we can start looking into, all of the exceptions and all that other stuff, because that's usually where we kind of live, is in the exceptions.
Right. Yeah, I think we really look at the approval process. So pulling a permit,
right.
What are the delays? What's getting caught, and trying to catch those really just low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Those things that are not necessary. Like you said,
right.
you live in exceptions. You should focus on the more critical, more complicated component of that. And I think going earlier to the idea of automation and what does that mean for the professional's job and future. We just focus on that mundane, low-hanging fruit and try and let the designer focus on I think what humans are really good at, their creative process, reading in between the lines, letting the computers do the low-hanging, mundane tasks of code check.
Well, one of the things, and I don't know, where you're at, maybe within the process or whatever, but one of the things that we had talked about in the past was, as this automation starts becoming more and more prevalent, are these things that we can start getting code reviewers and things like that to actually start to see, because that changes the game on our submittal processes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's first and foremost in our mind is to bridge that gap between the designer and the government body or the AHJ.
Right.
And ideally, they can adopt some of this technology to increase transparency.
Right.
So you as a designer, before you try and pull a permit, you would have some indication if that's going to be accepted or not accepted and why. I think it's pretty challenging, the discrepancy you see between jurisdictions, and one plans examiner might interpret it a certain way and another might do it a different way. So I think trying to bring that transparency and consistency is important.
And another thing is, what I see is an opportunity is, we know that the approval process takes forever. I mean, I've got a project that I'm working on right now that the published approval process could take up to 12 months. Really? Does it take? It doesn't take me 12 months to do a code review on my project, so why is it taking you 12 months? So, to be able to integrate an AI process, into it so that you can actually start to see where it passes, where it fails, and stuff like that is, encouraging to me, that, we can start to chip away at these long review processes.
Yeah, certainly. And it's definitely a long road. It's such a complicated domain that, like you alluded to, like chipping away at this. That's exactly the way we think about it. Maybe like a 3-5 year process that we can even get to like 20-30% coverage of all the code, but slowly trying to get more and more of those automated checks happening.
Right.
I wanted to bring Shane into this conversation as well. Shane's with Iris VR, and I think that there's some future of architecture right here sitting with us. And so I wanted to bring Shane into this conversation with Scott from Shane, what's your last name again?
Scranton.
Right. Yep. Shane Scranton from Iris VR. You want to just talk about a little bit about what you do, and then I'd love to sort of see how your two worlds connect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a software company that brings various design models, Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, Navis, direct into VR to really accelerate the decision-making process with clients and with other stakeholders on the project. And as VR gets easier, really making that process just super one-click and really easy to engage with the project at one-to-one scale.
At our firm, we use Prospect. We've been huge fans of Shane and his work, and obviously lots of back and forth to develop the product as it goes along. And I think that's starting to happen with you guys as well. I'm sure you're getting a lot of input over at Upcodes. And my question is, like, I have actually two questions. That one of them is for you, and one of them is for both of you guys. I know that you on the podcast can't see who I'm pointing at, but Scott at Upcodes, are you getting any interest from agencies with your software? Because I know, like, we do a lot of work with Department of the State Architect. They're actually doing some automated code check for accessibility on PDFs, not in 3D. But I would assume that as we work more toward model-based delivery, and someday, would they just be able to implement something like you? And then the second question that I think both of you guys is there a way that we can then take that information that you've got and actually experience it either internally in our firms, but then also with the code officials at the same time, get into the models and have discussions about these things and look at those collisions? And obviously in VR, it's not a big deal for us to pull these. We can already do markups in VR. We can tag elements. We can do all these things. So how will those two things, how could you guys see those two things kind of overlapping, since it's all based on the same model anyway, potentially?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And just thinking at a macro level, what's happening in the U.S., the AHJs are getting increased budget cuts. So they're having to operate on a leaner budget and less staff. Meanwhile, the architecture industry is growing, continues to grow. More applications being submitted to the AHJs, and they're struggling and buckling under that pressure. And permitting times are getting longer and longer. So here in Las Vegas, we just heard that it's a 3-month waiting period before you can get a permit pulled. So that's the macro trend. So as a result of that, we have had a lot of positive interest in automating it, at least to some point, in that process to alleviate some of their woes. So we've talked domestically to say like Oshpod, dealing with healthcare and California construction, and a lot of typical building departments, but also internationally. Interesting. So Singapore is throwing a lot of money at it. They dealt with this in the early 90s. They poured millions and millions in the 90s, and it looks like they might be looking at a $40 million government contract just to look at automated plan review. So this exact topic, Abu Dhabi is doing the same thing. So I think there's interest both domestically but also internationally.
Yeah, I think to the second part of your question, I mean, a lot of what we're looking at is how do we make the model more of the source of truth, and how do we sort of preserve the workflows in the actual 3D digital context. And I think especially from like an approval standpoint, the more you can exist true to scale in the actual model and be able to walk through and experience it can really speed up the approval process quite a lot. And I mean, I think there's various elements that I don't think VR will address right out of the gate, but the more people can exist in the actual source of truth within the file, there's a lot that can be accelerated there.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, one of the things that we struggle with when we're in front of an AHJ is trying to explain to them exactly, some of the issues that we have with, what meets code, what doesn't meet code, and all of these other things. And if we're able to take them into the model to actually show them where it meets code, where it doesn't meet code, and things like that, I do see a great overlap between, what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it takes out a lot of the abstraction. It's like instead of trying to describe with words and plans, you can go in and look directly at the element.
Yeah, and Shane, that's a great point, the source of truth kind of concept. Because you have a BIM model, it has all the information packed into it, but at the end of the day, you export to a 2D drawing set. And there's a huge disconnect between a 3D model and that 2D drawing set. So I think what Iris VR does, which is so interesting, is putting the emphasis on that BIM model. And I wonder if there's a future where we can actually submit the BIM model to the government and cut out that export.
That's the dream.
Yeah, that is definitely a goal that, like, Evan and I talk about constantly, is because we see the validity of, so we've talked about with a variety of different things. I've got projects that, we give off to the CM, our BIM model, and they're building off of the BIM model. So why can't we go to the AHJ and, do our permitting off of the BIM model? I mean, we're almost there. It's just, you're right with, the cutbacks and everything else. I mean, you've got, basically staff that isn't trained in the software that we're trying to show them. And, to make it a lot easier is basically the next step. If they feel comfortable with it, they'll start looking at it.
Yeah, it's a conversation about accessibility too. I mean, it's hard to open a 2 gigabyte Revit file if you're an HJ.
Right.
I mean, I think there is also just access to the data. I mean, a PDF and a printout is still so familiar and so easy. So I do think there's sort of reducing the abstraction of what the drawings are showing and what the model means. But I think it's also just making the consumption of that data really accessible to anyone who's non-technical. And that's a lot of what we're looking at now on the VR side is VR is a great way to reduce that abstraction, but it also needs to be really accessible. So someone who's non-technical, someone who's been at the HJ for for 50 years, 30
40,
years.
Yeah, 30, 40, 50 years, yeah.
Can open it up and access that data.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings up the idea of proprietary file formats, too. A lot of people, especially in the U.S., work in Revit files, but an AHJ can't really back, an Autodesk product like a Revit file. So then you start to think about, well, what's like a shared standard for BIM, and that is most likely IFC. So thinking about what's the accessibility to an IFC model, and I'm not sure if Iris VR supports IFC, but I think that would be a huge leap forward for an AHJ, being able to operate on that BIM model without going through an Autodesk product.
We didn't plan this, but our next release will have IFC support. So you heard it here first.
And it does seem like there's a lot of companies out there kind of trying to get into the position of what's it like to be the owner in this world where everybody's operating with different file formats and different platforms because they don't want to. They don't have the budget to train people to use them. They don't want to spend the money to license the software over and over every year, right? And so, like we see Unity's announcement, right, where they're building a platform for the models to become federated, so that somebody who doesn't know Revit, doesn't own Revit, whatever, they can just pull open. It could be on the cloud. They can get in the model. They can review it. and it's fast, it's light, it works on any device, right? It works on an iPhone, it works on an iPad, it works on a computer. It doesn't matter what you have. It goes up and down the technology, the levels of technology so easily. It's interesting to see these other companies, like, really from like the video game side, the game development side, who are like, whoa, like there's a foothold to be gained to give empathy to the owner, right? Who doesn't talk this language, who doesn't deal with this kind of stuff. So. Yeah.
So Scott's going to switch out. Scott, thank you very much for hanging out with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I think this is going to be one of those problems that we have here. We have a lot of people talking about a lot of passionate things.
Yep.
And so what I thought is maybe we can overlap. I want Shane to stay and introduce Mike Riscica of Young Architect. And Mike, you want to talk about what you do, why you do it, and then maybe we can overlap a little bit about what Shane's doing with Iris VR and how, what you're doing, how those two things overlap.
Iris VR. I talk to you guys every year at the conference. So I'm Michael Riscica. I'm a licensed architect in the state of Oregon. When I got my license, I had a really hard time getting it. It was a hell of an experience. I felt like there was so much bad information about what the architect exam was. And after I was done with my exams, I needed something creative to work on because there's nothing creative about passing these tests. And I needed to make something and express myself. So I started a blog, youngarchitect.com, and I started writing about how I passed the architect exam. I started ranting and raving about the profession. And it just very quickly, it picked up a lot of momentum. And now at this point, I got a program that helps people get started with taking the architect exams. We're creating study materials. I'm traveling around the country giving lectures about the ARE and entrepreneurship, teaching workshops, putting out podcasts, making videos. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you can give us kind of an example of the kind of people that you talk to as you go on this roadshow and do the boot camps and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I talk to students a lot of time. I'll start there. I do a lot of lectures at universities talking about, I have a presentation about, I call it Entrepreneurship for Architecture Students, where I hammer on 3 different principles. It's trading your time for dollars, establishing multiple streams of income, and finding a problem to solve and monetizing it. And so I do that lecture for students, and then I also speak at a lot of AIA chapters and firms and conferences about the architect exam. And kind of the message of that presentation is really of, let's stop looking at this thing as it's a test. Let's treat it as an opportunity to learn, as professional development, to become better architects and really learn the craft of how to practice. And let's focus on that, and let's set our sights so much higher up as becoming successful architects rather than just people that pass tests.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've become a consultant in a different way to the profession. I mean, you're helping the profession be a profession.
Yeah. And that was kind of
further down the road.
One of the things that happened was there was a period where I was practicing at the same time doing projects, and I felt like waiting in line and dealing with clients and dealing with building officials was getting in the way of all this young architect stuff. So I took a step back about a year and a half ago.
You can always go back to that.
I know. I've been working in this profession for so long.
Yeah.
So I've been focusing on the young architect stuff full time.
Cool. So Shane, you come from architecture as well, right?
I do.
And so
I was
talking
a young
about
architect.
talking about this entrepreneurial spirit and like solving a problem. I mean, that's where Iris VR came from, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I was up in Vermont working at small residential firms and loved it, but really my strength was in 3D, and so I branched off and started doing sort of 3D consulting, 3D freelance, and that evolved into what Iris is. Effectively, got a headset in 2013, started bringing it into clients, and very quickly it was, Shane, why are we paying you for renderings? You should be doing VR for us. And we moved into sort of the VR space in 2014 and saw very quickly that we could be one of the first, and there was a big opportunity for software. So sort of came from the architecture world. I moved to the dark side of tech, but
that's construction, actually.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. No, I also joke that I never got my MArch. I was undergrad, and it's so funny. It was such a debate. Just the expense of grad school. That's actually what fueled my freelance work. The plan was to go to grad school, and sort of got pulled into the tech space. And it's an interesting conversation around just how this industry cultivates young talent.
And now you're just talking to architects all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
Couldn't get away.
Exactly. Here I am, around about 20,000 of them, I think. So.
Okay, so Iris VR, you guys let us experience our models, experience stuff before it's built in an amazing way. And so what are you most excited about now? Like there's 800 headsets available now. There's so many directions people could go. If you were to kind of give an idea, and I think this kind of ties back to students as well, because like I would teach an emerging technology class at Cal Poly, and we talk about things that didn't exist 5-10 years ago that are now career paths in architecture.
Yeah.
And so as you're, Mike, as you're kind of engaging with students and you're talking about passing these exams, obviously that's a huge step into a career in architecture. You're actually, Shane, providing a potential career in architecture through visualization and through VR. So what are you excited about? What do you tell people who are, looking at all this technology, all these potential dollars they could spend? Obviously, they don't have to spend all that money to get into it, but because there's a lot of great software out there that's low cost or where they can sample it and try it out. But you're aimed at something different than that. But what are you most excited about?
Yeah, it's a really exciting 2019 and 2020. I think on the hardware side, I have a headset sitting next to me that obviously listeners can't see, but it's the Oculus Quest.
Brand new.
Brand new. It's a big deal because it's got sort of full tracking and full sort of access to the right type of VR in our eyes. It's 6 degrees of freedom. Really, really feels like you're there, and no computer required. So it's completely self-contained. It's $400. Put it in my bag. I carried it here. Don't need a laptop.
It's wireless too.
So wireless, just so nice.
Yeah.
And it's really, in our eyes, the first big step towards just making VR actually accessible to people who aren't tech enthusiasts who have a $2,000 or $3,000 laptop or a desktop. And I think technology like this makes being an entrepreneur in a frontier tech market a lot easier because you're not really engaging just with early adopters. You're able to engage with a more majority market, which you sort of need to start scaling a business if you're testing it out. So we're really excited about this technology just in general, and VR just becoming more accessible across the board. I picked
Everywhere.
the Quest, but there's been a ton of releases this summer. Yeah. So on the VR side, I'm really excited about that. I think more exciting even for what we've seen in the last 5 years is it seems like firms really are thinking more, you even mentioned this, are thinking more about what it means to have a federated model and what it means to have, I already said this as well, but what it means to have a single source of truth.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing that come up in more conversations, whether that's BIM 360, whether that's using sort of Navisworks, whether that's using sort of another web-enabled tool. And I think that's a really important part of the process for the industry to start thinking about these models as sort of digital twins and representations of the job site and of the project.
Right.
And of course that layers really nicely into what we're doing in VR. So I'm excited about that trend too.
Awesome. So Mike, where are you headed next?
I'm going to fly back to New York, and I'm going to do a couple of presentations around Long Island, New Jersey.
Wow.
And
so where's your van?
Oh, it's in New York right now.
Okay.
Yeah. That's another thing. I've been living in my van since November 2018.
Wow.
I'm spending so much time traveling, and I used to have a minivan, and I was like, you know what, I need a bigger van.
Bigger van, yeah.
And so I went out and I bought a Mercedes Sprinter, and I've been building it nonstop.
That's cool.
It's been like my hobby. It's given me something to do. It's given me a reason to go to Home Depot every day.
Yeah.
And so, I've been working on that. So I'm going to head up to, at the end of June, I'm going to do a presentation in Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit. Then I'm going to drive out to Portland, Oregon. I'm going to be in the West Coast all summer long, and we're having a young architect conference this summer for the next generation architects.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure you talked about that.
We wanted to. I mean, there's so many architecture conferences, and they all have kind of a different spin on it. And I wanted to have a conference really for the young people in the profession, and let's have conversations and keynotes and workshops and parties that are all kind of focused on building a more successful profession.
And I love what you did with the speakers. Talk a little bit about how you formatted the speakers. It's not a typical conference.
Yeah. So I said, rather than hearing from star architects or movie stars at our conference, we want to hear from successful young people who have stories to share. And let's get them on stage.
And those are some voices that are not being heard right now. Yeah. And so it's great to sort of hear that.
So we've got a bunch of amazing people from all over the country who are going to be doing our keynotes. And then we got 25, 30 different workshops, all focusing on professional development for the future.
So how do people find out about that if they want to?
Conference.youngarchitect.com.
All right, conference.youngarchitect.com.
And what's the date and location?
Oh, it's in Portland, Oregon, August 23rd through the 25th. We rented a beautiful venue for it. It's brand new, and we're just super excited.
I saw that on the site. That looks like a very cool place.
That's cool. I just went to Portland for the very first time 2 months ago, and I was blown away. We got great weather. Portland Japanese Gardens downtown.
Beautiful.
It's just beautiful. There's so many, Multnomah Falls. There's so many things to do there. If you love the mountains, if you love clean air,
it's an amazing city.
Place to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for being
our
here.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Is there anything, Shane, that you want to give everybody your web address?
Yep.
Talk about Prospect and what it does real quick, and leave people with something to check out.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about young architects, if you're a student, we give out our software for free. So now with the Quest, which is $400, you can get that running with our software for free. You can apply right through our website, which is irisvr.com. We really want every student to be in VR, experiencing their projects and their designs.
Yeah.
And coming up next, we have Prospect now available for the Quest, as well as these next generation headsets. And we've had a trial for a long time. You can download a trial. It's 14 days direct from our website as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Right, we're going to take a quick break from this episode to mention our sponsor, and that, as you probably have already guessed, is ARCAT, since we were recording in their booth at the AIA show. So it's spring, which means it's time for growth, renewal, and adjustment, but we're not talking about your failed New Year's resolutions. We're talking about building products. Manufacturers are removing, adjusting, and adding products to the catalogs to meet standards of an evolving industry. That means your old CAD, BIM, and specs might need updating. Luckily, ARCAT works with manufacturers to get their newest information online, so you know you are getting the latest and greatest from a building product company. And it was kind of cool during the show. I saw the ARCAT plaque on so many booths. So they really are working with all of the companies that are representing the products and the manufacturers that we work with all the time as architects. Best of all, the data is free for you to browse and download. You don't have to register. They're not tracking you. Check out arcat.com. That's ARCAT.com the next time that you need the latest building product information.
Thanks, guys. I have Robert Yuen coming on next with Monograph, but he's not here right now. He was here, and
stepped away.
He's coming back. Thanks, Shane.
We have people taking photos.
Yep. And I got Facebook
here.
Live going on here, too. If anybody who doesn't know what's happening here, this is the first annual ARCast. We are at the ARCAT booth at the AIA conference, and we're talking to a bunch of guests. Every 15 minutes or so, we got a new guest coming in, and so we figured we'd broadcast it on Facebook as well. So if you're hearing us and you're seeing us, that's what you're hearing and seeing. So we have Robert Yuen of Monograph coming next, and then Reg Prentice is coming up after Robert, and we can overlap them too, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, they actually work together because they were both in the incubator program for
so they know each other.
060, so they know each other.
That'll be a great conversation. Yep.
So let's talk about your meetup last night.
Yeah, the meetup was great. I thought it was a great turnout.
It was. Can we talk about the venue real quick?
That's what I wanted to start with.
We have to start there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll just give and this happened to you too, right? We called a Lyft. They said we're going to the, what was it called? Rancho.
It was the
we have
cantina.
to plug the place because
it was the
you got to send people there.
El Dorado Cantina.
El Dorado Cantina, right?
Yep.
And so we get in the Lyft, and the guy's like, El Dorado Cantina, right? Yep. And we drive over there.
A Mexican place.
And we pull into this parking lot for a strip joint.
Sapphires.
Right? And it was like, are we at the right place? And there's a door on the right, and there's a door on the left. It's one building, right? And I was like, is this really?
Yeah.
Did Mark know about this?
Nobody knew about it until we got there.
So they conveniently left that out.
Yeah. When they market the El Dorado Cantina, they don't mention that it's part of the strip joint.
Yeah.
It's actually not. I mean, it's in the same building. It's in the same parking lot. But it has no connection,
right?
And so it was actually a great place.
It was a fantastic place. So they told their story about that place, and I thought it was funny how the owner presented it. She said, it could be the reason you're here,
right?
Right.
It's either the asset or the liability.
Right.
Take your pick.
So it was a great meetup, though. I mean, tons of activity, lots of excitement, They announced the CVG award winner
for the business plan
competition this year, and
it was a collaborated event. So the last 2 years we've done that. We've combined the Charette Venture Group architecture business plan competition reception to award the winner and celebrate the winner, and have a meetup with all the small firm and the entre architect community and just hang out and have a good party. And so we brought those two communities together and had a good party. So
nice little networking event, and good to see friends and
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are basically family now, right?
Yeah. It was
cool.
It was a good time. It was a really good time. So.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we Robert Yuen is here from Monograph, and I want to kick off with letting Robert talk about Monograph. What is Monograph? Why did you create it? And how are you changing the world by creating it?
Awesome.
Simple, easy question.
Yeah.
It's easy. I got it. So I'm Robert, CEO of Monograph. I was an architect, trained as an architect. Did my master's at Michigan. Worked at Skidmore, Owens & Merrill, and then transitioned and did a whole bunch of high-end residential, and continue to see a massive problem in how we track time and manage our budgets. So really, Monograph is trying to solve, it's a project management tool and time tracking tool designed for small and mid-sized firms.
And you started off, though, Monograph was a website building tool, right?
That's correct.
And is it still? Are you still doing that as well?
We're
or have
no
you
longer doing
completely
that.
Pivoted away from that?
We pivoted away.
Okay. See
We
my
still have
tech lingo right there? That's pretty sweet.
The product still exists.
Uh-huh.
We're just not allowing any new customers.
Okay.
So all of our existing customers that are on our first version of Monograph websites is still paying customers.
Okay.
And as long as they enjoy it, we'll keep it alive.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
How many are still on the platform then?
On the website?
Yeah.
So we started off with around 700 architects using Monograph websites.
Nice.
The numbers come down a little bit. I think it's closer to around 600 firms there.
They're beautiful. I mean, that was really the draw, right? They're easy to set up. They look really good. Yeah.
So if we're going to talk a little bit techie and a little bit business-wise, it was just really difficult to compete with Squarespace and Wix and WordPress from a price perspective, from a volume perspective. The business model just wasn't going to work. Just offering websites for architects. We weren't solving a really dire need.
Right.
And unfortunately, when you don't do that as a business model, you're just not going to get the traction to run a really sustainable business. Monograph now, this version, we'll call it Monograph Dashboard. Tracking time and managing fees is extraordinarily valuable for small practices.
Sure.
So it's historically you do it either with a whiteboard or an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
There's a massive.
No, those
problem.
people are not lined up for Deltek.
So is it literally like a timer system that gets fed into a database? Is that how it works?
So it's a web-based platform. How it works is it looks very similar to most other time tracking software, where you enter your project, you enter the hours you worked on. What's really unique is we just make it really seamless and really easy, really beautiful. We also segment out so that you can track multiple billable rates, which almost no other time tracking does.
Oh, okay.
Because no other time tracking software is designed for architects. Let's be honest, small firms and mid-sized firms, you have to wear multiple hats. Your billable rates will fluctuate. Even if you're a principal, you can't be billing principal time the entire duration of a project. So we essentially bake that into when we're designing the software.
Okay.
Have any engineering firms picked it up? I mean, it's the same parallel there, right?
We're talking to a few engineering firms, so we're about to essentially start onboarding consultants. The big mission for Monograph is we want to essentially capture all the professionals that make buildings happen. It starts with the architects, but it doesn't end with the architects. There's structural engineers, there's MEP engineers, there's seismic. There's a lot of essentially professional consultants that need to be on a project to make it happen.
Do you guys have any kind of since a lot of projects start with architects and then they bring in the consultants, and I'm sure you're kind of banking on those architects spreading something that they see as incredibly valuable
Correct.
or excited about. So is there, because you guys are a startup, small business, are you guys doing affiliate kind of things with those kind of firms, or how does that whole system, your marketing system, work so you can build this platform with the most number of users that you could see benefiting from this?
So we're starting to explore affiliate programs. We're really happy to continue to work with Mark LePage on Entre Architect, and hopefully we can keep doing that. But ideally, we systematize a way so we can partner with everyone else in the industry.
Seems like there's just got to be, you've got to try so many different things, and you kind of have some freedom to experiment, I would assume, but and see what works and what doesn't.
What we're really confident about, which really will hold us as a product, our longer term mission, is that we see the industry becoming more and more segmented based on consultants, more and more specialized professionals. We've seen that populate growth over the last 5 years, and it's exponentially going to keep going. There's a lot of market-driven scenarios, and this is due to liabilities and architect passing liabilities, and a lot architect buildings are getting more complex. So building a project management tool that not only is siloed to one individual's organizations, but building the cross-organization collaboration is really where we're going to win. So once that starts churning, we won't absolutely need to be dependent on affiliates because the product itself will drive all the entire team to come on board.
Okay, so it's called Monograph Dashboard. So talk about the dashboard.
Yeah.
Like, tell me why. Like, what are we seeing when we look at Monograph Dashboard, and why is that a compelling?
So one of the hardest things is you have a lot of projects, and it's very difficult to see all your projects all at once. What stage you're in, what phase they're in, who's working on it. So being able to really easy filter and know that at a glance is extraordinarily valuable. And then since we're doing time tracking with employees, what's amazing is we have what we call the money GAN, where as you fill out your timesheets, a little GAN is just going to move against your total fee for that phase. Like, it's just a visual indicator of like how much fee you're burning in real time, which makes total sense because everyone has an hourly rate, and you should know at a very high level how much fee you've burned and how much fee you have left.
Yeah, I love the dashboard because I think that architects think that way. You know, that most financial management software and a lot of the project management software is built for the rest of the world, you know, and architects, for one, they're very visual. They want to see, you know, green lights when things are good and red lights when things are bad, you know, and we want to see beautiful things. When we use our software, I pick, you know, one of the main components of picking software is how does it look? What's the user interface? Not only is it easy to use, but is it beautiful to look at? Especially when I'm using a software like Monograph, where I'm using it all day long because it's part of my time tracking. I'm looking at it constantly throughout the day. I want it to be beautiful, and I think that's one of the things that you've done, even through the websites, all the way through to what you're doing today.
Yeah, and I think that helps, like, as being a tech founder with a design background, like, design is so important. It eases so much of the usability. It makes streamline the processes so much better. We solve problems with visuals first before we dive into like the data and analytics. And we're always going to be design first as an organization.
So you said that the dashboard was more built for a small or a medium-sized firm. Do you see it scalable for larger firms, or do you see it scaling in the future to larger firm use?
Absolutely. Like I believe right now the correlation between feature sets and size are like 1-to-1, which makes us really applicable right now for small to mid-size. But we have an appetite to go larger.
How are you getting the word out there besides being on podcasts like this? You know, where you guys have a marketing team where you're going out and you're knocking the door of HOK and stuff like that. You know, SOM. I mean, how does it work? What's your sales? What's the behind
the
sales?
secret sauce?
Yeah,
it's Entree Architect.
It is Entree Architect.
Monograph is they're a membership sponsor for us, and they've supported us for a long time. But recently they actually signed on as a member, and they support our membership programs and
because integrated. Very nice. Very nice.
So when you sign up for a membership, they have access to Monograph for a year,
and that includes CVG as well as partnerships. But I'll just tell you the secret sauce. Also, like, it's SEO. Like, I think when you're a design first company and everyone searches Google, we have to essentially dominate the SEO world. Like, we have to be ready when architects are ready. And I think the traditional sales strategy of knocking as many doors as possible doesn't quite work when you're trying to sell to professionals. Like, we're busy.
Yeah.
Like, we'll come to you when we know we're ready, and we need to just be ready when that happens. And the best way to solve that problem is to make sure we spend a lot of time at SEO, build content, and make sure that we're relevant so that when architects find us, we're ready to go.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like we even ended up putting like on our Glassdoor appointments only. And we still get people coming through in the conference room like, what are you doing here? Did I miss it? And then I panic and I look at my phone and I go, I don't have an appointment. What are you doing here? So I think that's smart.
It's so intrusive. Like, I don't like it.
We are very busy.
Right? Like, we're professionals. We're busy. We're solving major problems from infrastructure to buildings to parks. SEO.
Yeah.
And so partnerships are great because it's an industry built upon relationships, and we need to continue to build relationships as a core success model for marketing and sales. But SEO is going to be a huge supplement to that model.
Yeah, Robert, talk a little bit about the other things that you guys are doing, because it's interesting from an architect's point of view with some of the niche sites that you've built. And I know that's not part of Monograph, but I think architects would be interested in that because they have ideas, and that's part of your SEO strategy. You sort of built those to sort of learn how to build competitive SEO, and they've done great with those. And so what are some of those ideas that are separate from Monograph, but architects might be able to learn from?
So what's interesting is we took on a lot of these smaller projects to essentially tool up our own ability to be very good SEO professionals. And some of those projects, like HTML color codes, does 1.5 million views a month. It's insane.
Incredible.
And it's completely monetized by ads. We're ranked number 1 on a number of different keywords that point right back to that site. And it's a great source of revenue in terms of like architects looking for alternative supplemental revenue. If you find a niche, if you find a keyword that has a lot of volume, you can use that as a case study to essentially like optimize and win that keyword. And a revenue model will be having ads on that website.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's htmlcolorcodes.com.
So as a collective, we own a few. HTML Color Codes is the one that performs the best.
Yeah.
But we also have Chinese New Year. If you look up ChineseNewYear.net, we have that one as well. So we do experiment between tools and content-based sites.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea. I mean, so architects, they're doing their daily thing. They come up with an idea. They search for it. It's not there. You could build this little niche site that solves this one little problem. Like HTML Color Codes literally is a converter. You're looking for the code for a specific color. You pick the color, it tells you the code. That's all it is. So you do a Google search for HTML color codes because that's what you're looking for. You land on that site, and you find it, and then you monetize it by putting ads on the site, and they make good salary, good money with.
Yeah, I love it. You're diversifying through a series of niches.
Right.
Like you went to the niche, and you got all these legs to stand on.
Yeah, and then you learn about SEO, and then you apply that to the mothership of Monograph.
The whole goal, as individuals, we believe like trying and testing on a number of different small side projects that are like the scopes are really small, but like we can gain a lot of knowledge, new knowledge or deeper knowledge by doing really short sprint exercises. SEOs, how do we do it? How do we structure content? How do we optimize? How do we rank? These are all common questions that don't only apply to, let's say, static HTML code color websites, but they can apply to an architect's core business, right? Their core website. How do you optimize so that they're ranked number 1 locally if they're doing a lot of local work? What does it take? How do you get there? What are backlinks? How do you get them? Because these are really valuable assets as a small business owner in architecture to be ranked as high as you can locally if you're doing a lot of local work.
And I'm going to do a quick little plug for the membership at Entree Architect. Robert did a masterclass on that specific topic, where how do you build SEO, get your rankings up on your site as an architect. And so he sort of went into the back, gave us a little bit of the secret sauce inside the membership. So anybody who has a membership
your middle name, Secret Sauce?
has access to that.
It might be after this podcast.
I love it. Yeah, it should be.
I feel like I'm getting a new nickname every time I go somewhere new, though. So today I'm Secret Sauce.
Very cool. So do you do any architecture work, or is it just this is full time with you, Monograph and all the other websites that you talked about? Is that where most of your time is spent at this point?
So we started off as an agency first. So we're building software as a service. Our side projects were, and this is just like a traditional service-based model. So we had our highs and low months, just like architecture.
Yeah.
So during our low months, that's when we did the side projects. We're now transitioned where we're 100% focused on Monograph.
Very cool.
So we don't have any more clients, and this is the same stigma. Like we were just really tired of client work, and like we really wanted to build a product that helps the industry. Like me and my 2 co-founders are all trained as architects. Our backgrounds in architecture. All of our friends are architects. We can build software. Like we're trying really hard to find what's the right mission, what's the right type of project to solve. To help the industry.
Very cool.
All right, so we just had Reg Prentice from Tonic DM join us, and Reg and Robert know each other, I think, pretty well already. But we thought it'd be cool for you guys to overlap because, maybe you guys could just talk real quickly about how you know each other, maybe a little bit about 060, and just what wild ride you guys have been on for the last, 6 months. I think we saw both you guys at AU last year. So just maybe talk about that and help the other entrepreneurs maybe who might listen to this out there about like kind of navigating what you've navigated to this point.
So I'm Reg Prentice with Tonic DM. We're the world's most advanced project information management system built specifically for architects and engineers.
That's a great tagline.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
It's a long tagline. Robert and I met each other in the Trimble 060 Accelerator program, which we did last year, which was a program set up by Trimble to help young startup companies develop and grow within the industry. I think Robert and I hit it off because we both have similar ideas about software for the design industry, which is things that are easy to use, resonate with designers, and are just practical tools for getting your work done in a design firm on a day-to-day basis.
No, I think you've nailed it. Just helping architects get the job done.
Yeah, and I think doing it in a way which is very easy, doesn't require a ton of training, doesn't disrupt the firm's normal processes, and so in contrast to a lot of other technologies which are a big workflow disruption and require the architects to change their workflow, I think we're interested in systems which just fit right in and help architects in their day-to-day work.
Reg, can you talk a little bit more specifically about what the tool is and how it works? Most of the community who's listening here are probably smaller firms, mid to small firms, and so how does that work with them, and what do they do?
Okay. So one of the main problems we solve is correspondence, email management. So even in a small firm, you're going to have a number of different staff members and a number of different projects. So we make it really easy for the staff to organize their email by project. So everyone in the firm can see what's happening on each project rather than those emails being locked away in individual mailboxes. We also handle file transfer. So it's always tricky to send large files through email. So we have a system which is as easy to use as email, but you can attach large files to it, and it creates a transmittal automatically. It logs when those files are downloaded. And then tracking RFIs and submittals. So we even have customers that are sole proprietors who just use our system for the file transfer capability and the RFI and submittal tracking, because those are things which, you can do them yourself in Excel or just through Dropbox. But it's nice to have it in a system which is project-based. So everything is filed under its project, and it's in a standardized format.
Are you an architect?
I do. I wouldn't say I'm an architect, but I went to architecture school.
Trained as an architect.
I graduated architecture. I actually started at Frank Gehry's office. So after school, I moved from New Zealand to Los Angeles and spent 11 years working with Frank Gehry on the technology side. So I was part of the IT team. And I enjoyed it because with a background in architecture, and being a technology-focused person, where's better to work in that environment than Frank Gehry's office? And then I spent 9 years at Gensler in Los Angeles after that. So it was a little bit of a switch from a smaller firm with a kind of sole founder mentality to a very large firm where there are multiple studios, multiple principals, kind of global design business. So I feel like I got both sides of the coin on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's sort of what was the origin story? What was the seed that created the what you're doing today?
So at Gehry's office and at Gensler, my role was specifically around information management. So I dealt a lot with CAD, less with 3D, but a lot just with the process of design documentation. How information flows between the GC and the architect, the consultants, back to the architect, back to the GC. And I felt there wasn't a tool on the market which really made that easy for offices. There are some tools on the market for managing that, but they are just cumbersome. There's a lot of friction. Sometimes they're just too expensive, so they're just priced out of particularly the small firm range. And I felt there was a real missing element there that needed to be filled for the profession, because obviously as professionals we want to keep great records, and be very organized, so that we're professionals. But I just didn't feel there was a good system that was easy to use and priced affordably for that purpose.
Yeah, very interesting.
I don't know what you guys just talked about because I just
We're talking about you.
I just saw Roman Mars. He's right there, and I told him we're recording our podcast here, so he's basically here with us right now, right?
Roman Mars,
the
Arcast.
Yeah, on the Arcast. So, I like I said, I don't know what you guys just talked about, but Reg, we're using Tonic in our office, and I think what you were talking about as far as ease of use and something getting out of the way is a huge deal. Mm-hmm. One of the things that your guys' stuff does is it automates, like it learns as you go, right? If you have a project set up, it's trying to learn and take away the back of house work that people have to do by themselves.
Right. Well, there's two forms of kind of ease of use. One is when you're setting the system up and configuring it. A lot of technology is just beyond any architecture firm that doesn't have professional IT people.
Yeah.
So we've designed this specifically so that it's super easy to set up. You can get started very quickly. It's more of a consumer style of system setup, like something you just expect. You just log in and it works, right? You don't have to do some crazy IT stuff to get it set up. So even large firms appreciate that because no one has extra IT time. IT is always overwhelmed. Right. So that's one part of the ease of use.
More and more work is falling on their shoulders every day. So yeah, anything that you can do. Because of the more we're actually becoming technology companies who do architecture. That's how I frame it in our the size of firm that we are. So I think that the burden is becoming more and more increased on a very small team typically.
Right. So we try to take that burden off by just having software which just works.
Yeah.
And the second one is for the staff. Like, people just don't have time to do elaborate training right now. Like Revit, you will go to training for that, but for email management and file sharing, are you really going to spend days in training learning to use it? So we typically give a 30-minute overview for the staff because they need to know this is a new system the office is going to use, this is how we're going to manage the information, but they don't really need to be shown how to use Tonic because it's just easy to use, right? We cut down the number of buttons. We spent a long time removing buttons from our software because more buttons just means more overhead, more complexity, and we want this to be as simple as possible for the staff to use so they don't require elaborate training and they can get good value out of the system.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So with the 060 Accelerator program, can you guys just talk about, we've mentioned that on our show before, just to kind of talk about, one of the things that has definitely been identified over and over again in the architectural profession is the very low amount of innovation over time, right? And so it seems to me like accelerator programs like that, and there's a few of them out there, but that's one. And just to tie it all together, Lucas and German were both students of mine at Cal Poly. Now they're doing this cool thing, that it's coming out of Gary Technologies. Now Trimble bought it. Now they're running this 060 Accelerator, which is awesome, right? They're trying to do something for the profession,
right?
And they're investing in many different types of ways, whether it's office space or ideas or dollars, even in some cases, right? To get ideas like your guys off the ground. So can you just talk about what that program is? Because Lucas isn't here right now, but maybe represent what they're doing, and so people can look it up and just look into if they have entrepreneurial ideas. Maybe there's help that they can get.
Yeah. The website, I believe, is 060.io.
Okay.
And they have applications open right now for their new cohort for 2019.
And they do four different. A cohort is like 4 companies. Is that how it works?
I think it's a small cohort, but I think it's variable.
Okay.
They'll look at the applicants and try to find good fit for the program.
Right.
I think innovating in architecture specifically is very, very difficult because architects need professional software. It's not a toy.
Yeah.
And so when you're building a piece of software, you can't just code something up overnight and then expect people to buy it.
Yeah.
Right? They need something which is pretty mature before it really works in a professional situation.
Yeah.
So it makes innovation quite difficult for startup companies because you have to get a long way with the technology before you can expect people to pay for it and actually use it in an office.
Yeah.
And And I don't say that as a negative. I think that's just the way the profession is. It's a profession, and it's a very important profession. And you can't sell people toys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think getting over that hurdle of you have to create a really great product before people are willing to pay for it, that's one of the hurdles in our area.
Yeah, I think because it's so complicated to make a building, and like software needs to also address complicated issues. Like Monograph, Monograph dashboard right now, like it took 2 years to build before a first beta user was even using it. It's because there's so much work to make sure we cover it before we even hit our MVP, our minimum viable product. It just takes a long time. That said, like back to 060, like it's an amazing program just in the ability of connecting other startups together.
Yeah.
And sharing
like-purposed individuals.
Like-purposed individuals,
Not necessarily like-minded, right? But I always like to go back to like-purpose because you guys want to make this stuff better for people, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's really the goal.
And I applaud Trimble and Lucas and German for working on this because they're trying to get the startups, to help the startups over that hump.
Right.
And they do that by, as you said, offering some office space, a lot of ideas, and kind of assistance with that. Like, we're implementing an idea now that German introduced me to, and it's just like, it's transformational for us.
You want to talk about your future plans? Or
Yeah, we don't mind talking about our future plans.
Cool.
So, what I was going to say, any help that you get from companies like Trimble is really valuable to startups because it is so hard in this industry.
I think what's so neat about that is Trimble's a big company, right? And there's only a few of these big companies, and to see the way that they're investing in very small companies to help your ideas get big is very different than the way other companies work. I mean, a lot of companies are just looking out for themselves, right? And to me, this is definitely a gesture that is different than that.
Yeah. And they're both great people with a deep understanding of the industry, so working with them and with the other people in the cohort, with Ian and Robert, and in our case, that was huge. Like Robert said, it can be very lonely out there, and having a team of like-minded people is really great.
Like purpose
people.
Like purpose people. Yeah. No, I find that way... For me, personally, that was the number one asset in terms of joining the program, because I get paired with a similar startup in a similar phase, and we can address similar problems together and work on them together. And that means so much versus being siloed in our own office and trying to resolve problems by just throwing darts at a dartboard.
So I asked Robert the same question: are you seeing any other design professions pick up your software and start utilizing it well? I mean, there's a lot of parallels, right? Engineers work in the same sort of methods.
So we focus on A and E. So a lot of our best customers are actually engineers. We find when it comes to organization of information, that gels immediately with engineers because they think kind of in an organized way. So engineers definitely, as well as architects. Outside of that, we haven't focused on that demographic. Technically, Tonic would work for any company that uses project numbers. So any professional services company could probably use it. But we have tried to remain very focused on AE, just because we want to capture that market, and so we're staying very focused on that at the moment.
Can you also make a piece of software that would enable them to answer the phone quicker or return calls? Because that's a bane of my existence with engineers. It's a joke.
Well, I'm thinking like the phone has almost become useless now because 90% of the calls are just spam. Like, I hardly answer my phone anymore because it's the Social Security Administration telling me my numbers being
IRS,
compromised.
Right? Yeah.
I have a question that I'm always interested in with people who were trained as architects who have gone off into a different path and have become focused more on the tech side. That transition from, okay, I'm an architect, I've been trained as an architect, I've invested my time and my money and my brain power to become an architect, and then something happens in your career and you see there's a new path. That point, was that a difficult transition to make that transition, and how did you do that?
So I'll take a first stab. I know how to code a little bit, but I'll be completely transparent. I write zero code. Like, even though I'm trained as architect now running a tech company, I write zero code. I'm not a software engineer. I would never call myself a software engineer. So where I think the architectural education becomes super valuable is knowing how to contextualize problems, right? Like, at the core, we're still solving problems. We're still trying to make things for a specific audience. This is no different than when I was designing a building. It's just the context of how I'm solving it is a little bit different, and the medium and how I execute that is also a little bit different.
Yeah.
So do
you do like storyboards? I mean, how are you sort of laying out what the vision is?
We draw all the time in the office. We sketch all the time in the office. We're architects are visual, so the only way to really solve for a visual audience is we also have to be visual in our approach to solving problems. So we draw a lot in the office, and like one of the core problems of almost any software, not just project management software, is double entry, right? Where you're repeatedly asked the same information in multiple areas of the software. To solve that, there's no really other way to lay out the context. Like, how many times are we going to ask this question? And let's make sure that we don't ever ask architects to enter the exact same information ever more than once. You cannot simply solve that problem by just writing code. Like, you have to really understand the landscape of the situation. The following question was like, was it hard? It wasn't really that hard. I think it was like a long, slow transition. Like, I immediately.
So it was an evolution?
It was an evolution. Like, immediately after my MArch and MS degree at Michigan, I started a project called sectioncut.com, which was a curated collection of architectural resources for students. Really, it was a personal project. I finished my MArch degree. I was working on my portfolio before my tenure at SOM. And I wanted a way to essentially archive everything I learned in graduate school. How do I save all the plugins to Rhino, all the digital tools that I was using? How do I save all the scripts? How do I save all the texts? How do I save all the theory books? Like, I don't want to forget that knowledge. And that's really how SectionCut was formed. So I kind of always had one foot in, one foot out in terms of like building little projects. And
was that mindset shift? Did that happen at SectionCut or Monograph, where you went from the label "I'm an architect who's doing tech" to now I'm a tech entrepreneur who is an architect?
So I think that happened when I stopped working in architecture. So me and my two co-founders, Alex
so early
on, yeah. We decided to pair up. We were all essentially freelancing on the side. And it was like, well, we can command a larger fee if we weren't considered freelancers.
Yeah.
Right? We can now essentially have a little bit more value-based pricing because now we're seen as a company and not individuals providing freelancer consultancies. So when we paired up and started Dixon & Mo or our umbrella company, I stopped labeling myself as an architect because I'm not designing buildings anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you're the true software architect, though? That's such a contentious label. But you're it.
Right, exactly.
I finally met it. You're the software architect.
I have a new nickname, right? Like, I've transitioned. Secret sauce to, like, software architect.
What about you, Reg?
For me, it was a difficult transition. I've always considered myself an architectural professional. Even at school, I started writing code. So, like Robert, I have a background in kind of coding. I was never particularly good at it. Always like an enthusiastic amateur.
Yeah.
But for example, when Frank Gehry's office spun off Gehry Technologies, I chose to stay with Gehry Partners because I always wanted to be part of the architecture firm and part of the architecture process rather than a technologist.
Yeah.
But over time, I came to realize that my contribution to the profession as a whole was going to be in the technology field. It's definitely not going to be in the design field, that's for sure. So at that point, I started to transition in my mind that, you know, if I'm going to make a lasting contribution to the profession, then I need to embrace the idea that I'm going to be a technologist primarily for the architecture space.
And I guess to follow up on that, Reg, and both you guys, since you worked at larger firms, you didn't feel like you could do that in the firm. You felt like you really wanted to solve a problem that was much larger than just that user base. Because that's me. I'm director of digital practice at HMC Architects, and HMC is a 350-person firm, and I'm trying to solve problems, and I'm looking for people like you guys to help me solve those problems, but we're also writing our own code. We're doing our own scripting, and we are building our own tools that solve our specific problems. So I guess the question is, you really felt like your calling was bigger than that?
I think there's a type of problem where it is absolutely the role of the firm to build tools to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And there are problems where it's absolutely not in the interests of the firm to try to solve that problem. But
we're architects. We can do everything, and we should do it all right now.
Like the number of small firms that use Excel as their accounting system because they don't want to spend $20 a month on QuickBooks, right?
Oh.
But I think it's hard. There's a point at which it's hard for firms to determine, is this something we should do, or is this something we should let an outside professional firm do?
Yeah.
And a lot of firms end up going down the path of creating tools which are then too big for them to maintain. They without the maintenance, they fall into disuse, and that energy and that money ends up getting wasted. So I think it's important for firms to really think hard before they decide to either do heavy customization on a tool or to build a tool from scratch, because a lot of times it's just outside the reasonable purview of the firm to build that tool. And I certainly felt that with Tonic, it needed to be done. Like, I was with Gensler. Gensler has a lot of resources, but I felt, even if Gensler wanted to put the resources in, it just wasn't the right kind of thing for Gensler to be building internally. It was more appropriate for an outside firm to tackle that.
One of the reasons I love that question of mindset shift and labeling is because I think you can't do both. I think a lot of architects, they want to be an architect and they want to go pursue this other big idea. And when you try to do both, neither of them succeed at the level that you want them to. And so you need to either choose, I'm going to be an architect and build an architecture firm, or I'm going to go pursue this other idea. And maybe you still have your hand in architecture, but your primary focus has to be one or the other if you really want to succeed at that.
I think tools that would be relevant for an architecture firm to try to build themselves would be tools which specifically differentiate them in design. So, for example, if you're building Grasshopper scripts that produce a particular shape or particular kind of design that you want to explore as a designer, then totally go ahead and do it, because that's your differentiator is design. But if you're building general office tools, like if you're trying to build your own accounting system or resource management system like Robert has, then that's not going to differentiate you as a design firm. Yeah. So you really want to be buying that off the shelf.
Well, as we transition to our next guest here, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys. You're very much like a couple of the previous guests we had. We had Upcodes and Iris VR here. You guys are solving real problems for a variety of architecture firms out there, and I think that you're supporting the profession. And Reg, you've lectured in my class a couple times, and you're and it's not a sales pitch about your software. It's about what do architects best value? How are we contributing? And you're definitely contributing, both of you guys are, to our profession. And so I wanted to personally thank you, and thanks for coming to record with us
Evan.
today.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for having us.
Before you go, just why don't you plug how people can reach out to you and how they can access what you're doing?
Sure. Our website is monograph.io, so feel free to sign up. There's a little chat bubble in the bottom right-hand corner. Someone will be there to answer any immediate questions. Let's say if you do want to reach me, I address all my emails, robert@monograph.io. It might take me a day, give me 24 hours. Pretty busy now, but I get through everything within a 24-hour window.
All right, great. Reg, how about you?
And like Monograph, Tonic is very easy to sign up for. Our web address is tonicdm, as in documentmanagement.com. We have the little chat bubble too, so feel free to send us a message. Leave your email address in the chat so we can get back to you efficiently. You can actually sign up online, but usually we discuss the product with people first and kind of walk them through the setup. But very quick and very quick to get started and to try it. And we're very happy to work with small firms, medium or large firms.
All right, great. Well, thank you both for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit here.
Great,
appreciate
thanks.
it.
Thank you.
So our next guest
is the best friend.
Yeah, Lance, you want to introduce our next guest?
Nicholas Renard.
Hello.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
An American treasure.
national treasure.
He's
A
gonna
national treasure
He's going to tell us a story.
from Jacksonville.
Oh God, what am I telling a
So
story?
you didn't bring a book?
I didn't bring a book.
I thought
today.
you were going to read
He's not
for us.
reading.
No, that's only special.
Yeah, that's special for the besties. What have you been up to?
Just walking around this morning.
Yeah, but in practice, you're busy. You're a busy guy. You're building now.
Oh, I make it look a lot busier than we are.
Yeah.
But we have a couple big houses that we're working on. One we're building. It'll be our second new build house. We're bidding right now, in the process of bidding 2 other houses, but those are more remodels. And then we got 2 new build houses that are potential builds.
Yeah.
So it's changing.
Yeah, when we started our construction arm, this is the one question I was going to ask you on our podcast, but I'll do it now, is when we started our construction arm, we the subs that we got, some were brand new, we never worked with them before. And some were, I literally poached them from good GCs, and I asked for permission first. Was it sort of the same process with you when you started building?
I mean, I wouldn't say I poached, but I've been on job sites quite a bit through my career, and I knew who I wanted to call from working with them on other projects with other contractors. So, yes, in a sense, I poached, but I didn't cold call anybody.
Okay. Everybody was there.
Everybody was there.
Yeah, yeah. So where are you guys at in the building process right now on the house that you're building? You guys are almost dried in, right?
We are 100% dried in.
Okay.
They're doing exterior siding today, which is nerve-wracking because I'm here, and for the first time ever, we're using Hardy Aspire siding. So that's going on the house right now. They also scratch.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing, right?
They're scratch coating the stucco in today, which in the jurisdiction we're building, the inspectors insist on seeing the nailing pattern on the Hardy and insist on seeing the scratch coat before they brown coat it.
Yeah.
Which is just a nightmare.
Scheduling-wise.
Scheduling it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, our electrical component, our jurisdiction there, JEA, requires that our homeowner calls in to get their meter set. And I think my homeowner got a little confused, and there was some miscommunication, and so there was a lot of running around this morning trying to figure out if we had power or not, which we don't yet.
Yeah. Our previous guest, one of the topics that just came up was, they're essentially tech entrepreneurs at this point. And so we talked about having your foot in, they were architects, trained as architects, having your foot in 2 different places. So, you and I are similar in the sense that we're architects and builders. And it was a big wake-up call for me about 2 weeks ago with Alex. And we were on site, and I go, hey, I can't take on any more clients right now. I need to be here 100% of the time. How do you do it? Like, are you at that point, too, where you're like, I need to multiply, there needs to be another, we need to clone Nick?
We've always needed to clone Nick. You need more national treasures. I mean,
absolutely.
One Nick is
only
awesome.
Have one.
13 Nicks would be superior.
Yeah.
But what does Nick think?
Nick loves Nick, so of course Nick would like to see more Nick. I hired one of the best employees I've ever had last fall, and she's been awesome in helping get everything done. Usually when clients come in or people ask how you're getting it all done, and I'm like, well, I'm not getting it done. I work on 2 projects. Cammie does everything else.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat the case. But we're not taking new work. But we are getting a little more selective in what we take on.
Yeah. Does that include building sites? So, one of the rules of thumbs, Jonathan Segal has this rule of thumb, and I live by it, is if you're going to, I haven't seen him today. I told him to stop by. He hasn't checked his messages today. But that is, you got to be, his rule of thumb is 30 minutes or less. I'm only buying this site and building on it 30 minutes or less from my house. Because I have to be within that close of contact. Are you in that? Have you been afforded that ability with this latest build and the previous one?
Yeah, so we're fortunate in where most of our work is. I can get to most of my sites in 20 minutes, and most of my work is in a very condensed area. We'll only build at the beaches in Northeast Florida because we know we can get to each one of those sites in less than 20. We do have a client pushing us to stretch us a little bit further. We may do it from a construction management point, but we're not going to be his GC because I can't be there every day.
Right, exactly.
So I have a question for you, Lance, and you, Nick, because you guys have, Nick, you just said you made one of the best hires. and obviously you guys have grown over the last 2 years into what you're doing at F9, right? So when you think back to before you had that employee and when you guys were just doing it yourselves at F9, where did you see yourself in the future? I don't know how many years or whatever, but at some level it's probably like, I can't afford to do this, and now that you've done it, you couldn't have afforded not to do it, kind of a thinking. I just maybe riff on that, and where have you been, where have you come, how did you make those decisions? And then as you guys have grown at F9 too, like you guys are almost going to move into another office soon, right?
Yeah.
Like in your development. So there's a lot going on. I'm sure a lot has happened over these years. But
do you want me to go first, Lance?
I'll just say one comment and then you go.
Okay.
And that is, the best decision we ever made was to hire a bookkeeper. That's actually who we hired. It was almost at the same time as our real first employee, because that took a whole level of stuff I didn't have to deal with anymore.
The burden.
We were at the point where we could afford to pay somebody who isn't billable, because she's not billable, to handle the taxes. We were both getting mortgages at the same time, so we had to really reconcile our books. It took us off Excel, brought us into QuickBooks, and now we're streamlined in that way. And I think that kind of opened then the next door to be able to select the right people to hire after that. That were, one of the big questions I ask everybody when they go to F9 is like, are you comfortable being in the field? And they go, yeah, I would love to walk around. No. Are you comfortable swinging a hammer?
Yeah.
And I go, and they have to be comfortable with that. I need them to be out there and doing blue collar work, and they learn from it. So
yeah.
that's cool.
Nick, before you answer that question, I want to introduce our next guest here, who I want to overlap this conversation.
Okay.
This is Jared Zurn from NCARB, and so you want to just introduce yourself, Jared, and then I'd love to sort of have you get into this conversation here.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Jared Zurn. I currently am the Vice President of Examination at the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, which means I oversee the operation and development of the architect registration exam. Prior to joining NCARB, I was a small practitioner, a sole proprietor in northern Minnesota, and I also taught at a community college.
You're the NDSU alum, right?
I am an NDSU.
All right, go Bison.
Yeah,
Me too.
North Dakota State University.
Dakota State. I thought so. Yep. Yeah. I was super happy they picked somebody from our alma mater. That makes the most sense.
There we go.
So, Evan, back to your question.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point a year ago where I was just killing myself.
Yeah.
Every night, 7 days a week, up till 3 a.m. working to try to keep up. And I kind of
that was mental instability, Nick, that we knew right then.
Yeah,
yeah.
That was normal, Nick. Now I'm starting to...
The shakes are going away?
The shakes are gone. The voices are still there, so it's all good. So I tried to go the route that Lance went by hiring somebody to do some of that, the work that you can't really bill for, but you need to get done.
Yeah.
I offered my wife a job, and in 5 minutes she turned me down. But it's funny because now she's like, well, maybe it's time that I come work for you. And I said, no, it's not. The economic signal is kind of showing that we might slow down here, and we need your job to be stable, so you stay being a teacher for now.
Interesting, yeah.
But over the years, I made some hires quickly and poorly, and they did some damage. So I was really gun-shy to hire. I ended up hiring an intern from Cincinnati, which is my alma mater. They have a co-op program, so it was a 3-4 month commitment. If she was good, great, we'll get some more work done. If she's so, all right, we'll get a little bit done. Oh, sorry, I got to eat the mic.
Eat the mic.
And then in that time, another young lady applied to my firm, and I hired her, and it was like all of a sudden all the burden's gone.
Wow.
Because I had 2 people working.
The right people. Yeah.
And then my intern went back to school, and we started building, and I don't have another intern, and we're starting to look maybe for another project manager role. And it was funny because my PM now, she was all on board of, she's like, yeah, we should get another girl in here. Like, all I've ever hired is women.
Yeah.
And which is, I don't have... For some reason, guys don't want to apply to dig architecture. I don't know why that is. But
He's intimidating.
Apparently,
of his height.
My height. I tower over people, and I think guys just don't want to look up to me. So But she has a construction background, and that's, I asked her the same question that Lance asked. I was like, are you going to be comfortable working in the field? Because you're going to work in the field.
Yeah.
And she was initially all gung-ho, let's get another girl in here, da-da-da-da-da. And then we had a site cleanup where we lifted lumber all day and moved it around. She's like, maybe a guy wouldn't be so bad to have around, somebody with a little more muscle. So, we're going to look. We're going to be selective. But at the pace that we're getting projects and construction projects, it's going to get ridiculous really fast.
Have you learned? So I felt like that was one of the best lessons we've learned so far at F9 was hiring the wrong people. I think we hired 2 of the wrong people, and one we ended up firing, and then one kind of went their own way at the perfect time. It was like, this isn't working out. So, if you picked up anything in your practice where you're like, okay, now I'm going to run them through. This is the way I'm going to hire. I'm going to ask these kind of questions. I'm going to maybe bring them into the firm one day, and they're going to do a simple task. I'm going to see how they work out. Besides all the qualifications, you already see the resume, the degree, all the other stuff.
So, we do kind of do that. We go through several interviews. We sit down as a small team and meet with them. And then once we get in, we use this program. It's called Revit Rocket Ship.
Oh, yeah,
to train
I've heard of that.
Train our employees to get them up on board. These 2 guys did it, and it's
RevitRocketShip.com. You can head there right now.
RevitRocketShip.com.
It's pretty awesome.
Learn Revit fast and easy.
Yeah, so it was great. I've gone through the tutorial 3 times now, and you learn a little bit something more. I think I pick up on stuff. I mean, there's stuff that, and we watch it as a studio when we bring a new employee in, because there are some things that are in that program that we don't do. And so we can quickly say, no, this is how they do it, this is how we do it. It's a little different. But for the most part, it's a good foundation for them to build on. And it gets everybody kind of working on the same way because, as you know, Lance, using Revit, and Cormac, who just sat down, who doesn't have a mic, who uses Revit, people can go in all different directions with Revit. And if you're not on the same page, it's trying to get into somebody else's files a nightmare.
Yeah, the things that you guys are talking about as small firm owners are things that we're all struggling with. And I think that there are several organizations like the AIA are doing things to try to help us do those things. NCARB with Jared, what he's doing. And so I wanted to just sort of bring Jared into this conversation by asking Jared, what are some of the things that NCARB is doing that could help practitioners like Nick and Lance sort of solve some of those problems, bringing new architects into the profession.
Well, I'll pick up a little bit on what Nick was saying, even in interviewing. I mean, so NCARB, people think it's this big organization, but the reality is we're small teams. We're a bunch of small teams inside of NCARB. So working on the exam, we're only 6 people. And I will tell you, like any small firm, values and culture fit is critical. So we just hired some new staff on our team, and that's what we start with. It's a multi-interview process. Lance, like you said, we bring them in, and we have them do exercises as part of the interview process. Like, we really have to make sure it's the right person that's going to help our team grow, because one bad person on a small team is poison. And I think we've all learned that the hard way, so it's the slow to hire, right? Make sure you've got that right person. I think from an NCARB perspective, what we're really looking at is that culture, and we have really shifted our culture in the last, 5 to 7 years. I don't know how many of you have gone through NCARB programs prior to that. There was a lot of negative press when I started NCARB.
4.1 was my test.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I'm sure you might have gotten a letter from most of us.
Okay, possible, and that's okay, right. And I think the reality is, I started at NCARB 11 years ago, and to some degree, 11 years ago, the attitude was like, why are you okay, send me your email, I'll ignore it. And I'll tell you, the difference is today, if you send an email, like, we're on it, and we're like, what's going on? What are your challenges? And the good news story I'll share is I got an email yesterday from a licensure candidate that was testing in North America, was relocated to Argentina. We opened a test center in Argentina down there so she could test. She relocated to China. She's able to test over in China. I got the email yesterday saying, I'm done. I passed my last ARE exam. Like, that's a great news story to realize that NCARB is really here to help people go through the licensure process. And small firms, you are the front line of really helping people become licensed.
Well, yeah, my quick feedback would be that 4.1 that's what I went through. It was, I just did it. And it sounds like, and then my business partner was half in 4.1 and then in 5, and then now our employees are taking. One guy has 2 tests left. We're pretty excited about it. We're hoping we get another license in the firm. And it sounds like it is moving in the positive direction. We don't hear these. The kind of complaints that he's telling me about. I'm like, yeah, you didn't have to do the graphic exercise. The last minute you didn't move the circle. It's going way better for you. So yeah, I think you guys are on the right track. It seems more fluid.
That's good to hear. I will say, the reality of the thing is, we all know I was a 3.0 candidate when I took the exam. And I have my horror stories, and I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, you don't know what it's really like. And if any of us talk to somebody who took the paper and pencil exam, they're going to tell us, you don't know what it's really like. I had to take the paper pencil exam. And what we have to remember, though, is every new candidate doesn't have that history. So everybody wants the Amazon experience. Our clients want the Amazon experience. And so that's actually what NCARB is looking at, is how do we give you best in service, which is really a new way of thinking about it. And I'm sure everybody out there is thinking that same thing. How do you give your clients that best in service? Even though you're a small firm, that's great and hands-on, but they're also thinking, big firm technology, and they want to see it coming out of the small firms.
I have a random question. So the green papers that get sent to your local state DORA office or wherever, right, that allow you to, from NCARB to the state office, and then they see, oh yeah, they passed. Is there any way those can ever get unlocked and you can have access to them to see what you scored on? I've always been interested to see, I feel like I aced structures. I'm not joking. That was the easiest one for me. And I was like, I want to just frame that. I know I aced that test.
So, Lance, you really don't want to know because you may not have aced it. And as long as you pass by 1 point,
it's all that matters.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
The reality is we're never going to look behind the cover on the scores. And historically they did. So back in the paper pencil days, state licensing boards and the candidates would actually get their test score, like a numerical test score. The problem was people started to use it for the wrong reason. And so when you're looking to hire somebody, would you want somebody who, Lance got a 96 on structures. That's amazing. But if the next person walks in and got a 97, does that mean they're a better hire? And that's not an appropriate use of what the architect licensing exam is about.
Fair, yeah.
That would have no play in my studio. Yeah. I told So when my last intern left, she's like, how could I improve my resume? And I said, honestly, you got a lot of space dedicated to your GPA. I'm like, I don't care what your GPA is. I want to see that you can have design sensibility in both your portfolio and how you put your resume together. So when you have this 1.5-page resume and there's a quarter of it that's all about how great academically you are, I don't really care about that. We're in a subjective profession where if your professor didn't like you, you get a C.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't like your design. Doesn't mean you had a bad design. In most people's opinion, it mattered to him or her. So I said, don't. In our field, it doesn't mean as much.
Yeah, it's always baffled me, 10 years down in someone's career, and they're still, saying I graduated from blah, 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 with, as magna cum laude. I'm like, okay, but does that really matter anymore? I mean, once you're 10 years in, I'm looking more for your experience. I'm looking for what you can do, what you can bring to the table and enrich our firm.
Yeah. Did you graduate magna cum laude and all of a sudden you got lazy?
Yeah. Exactly.
Or did you graduate with a B average and you had this incredible drive?
Right. Exactly.
Right. And I think everybody looks at it from the perspective of, what can they bring for your future of your firm, right? Because you hire in the moment. We all do. We all hire in the moment, but we have to keep our eye on what's coming 5 and 10 years down the road, because that's what really is where success is going to matter. A lot of people can start a firm, and that firm can go out of business 6 months later. It's, can you start a firm? Can you keep it going? Can you grow the firm, like you guys were talking about? And then, what is that future? What's the profession going to be 5 and 10 years from now that we're all reacting to?
So real quick, I wanted to double back on just a thought I had or a question that I had for you guys. When you guys are hiring and looking at new hires, do you, especially with the big push towards new technologies and things like that, are you guys actually looking for people who can come in? I have this, I always use this statement every time I'm talking about, we've got the experience, and typically the experience doesn't know the software, and the people who know the software typically don't know don't have the experience. So are you always looking for the new hires coming in that are fresh out of school or a couple years into the profession, being able to come in and enrich your studio with more knowledge of the new softwares and where it can take your firm? Or are you like, hire, I need this, I'm sending out a set the next week and I need you to jump in on toilet room plans?
So in a resume, there's two things that will pop out to me first. They have to have some experience with Revit. If you have no experience with Revit, we don't even look at your resume. Or there's one thing that can override that is if you have construction experience. Because we can teach you Revit pretty quick while you're doing construction work with us. But if you have neither, I don't have the time to teach both.
True. And
for us, I would say at the beginning when we were first looking to build the base, maybe like the first 1 or 2 employees, I need you to have both of those things. I need you to have Revit plus construction. And now that we have a base to rely on, and we're up to 7 people, maybe our 8th hire would be just to fill a niche, and they only have to have one or the other. Maybe not even construction experience, because we can teach them Revit like Nick said, ReviRockshit.com, piece of cake. So it always, like one gentleman that we hired, he had his own photography side business. He would do weddings, and now he does all of our architectural photography. That saves us a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And like when I post stuff on LinkedIn on this latest El Dorado Walls project, people are asking like, "Who did you hire to do that?" And I go, "Oh, it's one of our employees." And they're like, "Well, he does a fantastic job." So there's stuff like that. One of our other employees is really good at rendering. So he fills that niche 100%. Another guy is really good at he's just figured out structures, and like I trust him. Another guy is he worked for his dad first, and he showed us all these waterproofing details. I'm like, okay, you're the waterproofing guy, and then everybody else learns from him. So it's kind of the way we practice at F9. Is like I want just a diverse team, a diverse set of projects, a diverse streams of income, so that we're as strong as possible when the next. When we are done with this crest in this awesome economy right now.
Right. But, Lance, I think you're saying something really important, which is you're mentoring across your firm, right? So you're bringing that niche person in, and you're very quickly realizing that person's going to help every one of us get better. And I think that is the key, I think, to growing any good firm, is that mentoring that next generation. You've talked about hiring new people. You look for certain things, but they're going to bring a specialty, and then you need that to spread across the whole organization.
Yeah, because we position ourselves with our hires as what can they bring to the table to make the firm as a whole, more marketable. I mean, how can we be more competitive against, larger firms that we're competing against and trying to, land the same jobs that they are. And so, I'm talking from a larger firm aspect than the smaller firms, but I was just curious if that...
There is the portfolio, too. How about you? Where are you at when looking at portfolios, Nick? And how do you judge it? Because there's 2 ways... We see two different kinds of portfolios, basically, coming in from our firm, and it's literally because of the schools that teach in a certain way. One is, man, you are analog still. I can't believe you guys... There's so many sketches, so many hand renderings, so many models, and then some people are just... like from SciArc or something, they're just pure digital. So do you have a preference for either one, or do you like mixed?
So we don't like to see any words in the portfolio because I'm not going to read. I don't really care too much about the description of the project. It's, when you spend a half a page or a full page on the synopsis of, I don't care about that. I'm not looking at, that's not what I'm looking at a portfolio for. I'm looking at your renderings and your hand drawings for design sensibility.
Right.
And then I like to see wall sections or some type of technical drawing to show that you've started to understand what those pretty pictures mean in the real world.
Right.
Beyond that, that's all we're looking for.
Yeah.
But it is awesome to see a mix of both computer and hand drawings in this set.
Have any of you seen a lot of resumes we've been seeing lately are they'll have like a little graph and they'll say Revit, Photoshop, InDesign. They'll have all these lists of softwares, and then they'll rate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. There's a little giggle, and sometimes they're real, and sometimes they're not. I mean, it's sort of like this weird, like you're rating yourself on the software. How do you even do that?
I've seen that come on, and I don't care for it much. I just say Revit a little bit.
I could see how
say
that would
a 7 out of 10.
backfire on someone.
Especially
if you're looking to get somebody going, boots on the ground, get moving. And they're like, well, the software that you're going to ask me to do, I think I rate myself at a 5. I'm like, well, I need a 9, dude.
Right.
Kind of thing. And so, sometimes that might backfire. So anybody listening, maybe that's not something you want to include. I mean, how do you look at it, though?
I just dismiss it because it's such a subjective rating. I mean, how would you even without doing like a day test like we talked about earlier?
Right.
Same thing at NCARB. I don't know how you test people. I don't know how you really believe that's there. I appreciate that I would rather have a list like Nick said.
I think what it leads to is the question of why do you rate yourself a 7 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5 stars? Because that's what you really need to understand is because I've seen this too, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to make it graphic and very quick and easy to read. But I think what we all know is it's about the conversation that happens. It's not, you're 4 stars. 4 stars in my head probably means something very different than 4 stars in Nick's head.
The resume is the only thing I read, but if it's over a page, I don't read it. It goes in the garbage. I don't. If you can't tell me in one page what you're about, I'm not interested.
Yeah, we have another guest coming in, so I wanted Jared to have one last opportunity before you go to talk a little bit about what NCARB is doing for small firms and how they could reach out and gain some valuable information from what you're doing.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. What I would say really is NCARB is really going to be focused this next year on supervision and mentorship. And like I said, really small firms are that front line because I started in small firms. When I came out of school, I got a ton of great experience. That's really where I learned how to put a building together, was in that small firm. But you go into a large firm and you get specialized, right? And you start doing one little thing. Small firms are, I firmly believe, a great place to do it. So look for resources from NCARB coming out in the next year on how to be a better supervisor, mentor, sort of that broad breadth of what it really means to be an architect. Other thing to watch for is we are doing a lot of work and researching where the current state of the profession is and where we're headed in the future. And small firms also are in a very pivotal place right now based on a lot of the research I've been doing about what's going to happen to that small firm in the next 5 to 10 years. We're already seeing it. Trends are there. Small firms are getting bought up, right? The mid-sized firms actually getting bought up. So what's happening is firms are either becoming really big or staying very small, and we're going to have to see what that really does to the profession in the next 10 to 15 years.
That's very interesting. So some of that trend spotting, is that available that architects can go to NCARB and find some of that information?
We're completing the research right now, and we're going to start putting it out. So you're going to see more like infographics and things coming from NCARB. The other thing we're doing too, which I think hopefully will help frontline architects, we've been doing more interaction with the International Code Council, trying to figure out better ways for architects and code officials to work together. I think we love code officials, and we sometimes have some angst with code officials, right, Nick? At the same time,
I wouldn't say love is the right word.
Okay, I'm trying to be really positive.
Is the right word.
Right. So it may be a love-hate relationship, but let's move it to a like-love relationship. So we are going to be doing that too. And so watch, we just completed a great perception analysis between architects and code officials. Some interesting data is going to be coming out on that too.
Well, how can we help support you?
Yeah,
besides,
that was excellent question.
Perfect. Yeah, because some people have asked in the Entree Architect community about reciprocity and stuff. One thing I do like about NCARB is that the reciprocity process is very simple. When I order something to go to Idaho or where we're licensed in North Dakota, it's there, and it is fast, and it helps us get the work established up there.
Most important thing any small firm can do, and I expect every one of you to do this year, NCARB is starting our next big analysis of the practice of architecture. So we need to hear from you. When we put out these questions and we're doing surveys, take the time to respond to them, because we need to learn from you, the practicing architects. Like I said, I used to have a firm. I don't anymore. So, I can do research, but I need to hear from you on the ground what's going on. When you inform us, that causes us to make changes.
Cool. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jarrett. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming by.
All right, that's it for part 1 of the AIA National Convention episode that we recorded, the RCast, the 3 podcasts together. ArcaSpeak, Entree Architect, and Inside the Firm. I hope that you really enjoyed all those interviews. We had a lot of fun doing them. It was kind of a round robin. Everybody was like jumping in, jumping out, and a little chaotic behind the scenes, but I hope you really can't tell that right in the recording. Anyway, it was fun. So part 2 is coming out in our next episode, and I just wanted to mention some of the guests that we're going to have on that episode so that you can prepare yourself. We've got Bill Janet of ARCAT. We've got Leah Bayer of EVS Studio, who won the Charette Venture Group business plan competition. We have Earl Parson of Clever Moderns, Lucas Reams of Trimble Consulting, Demetrius Lynch of the Spaces Podcast and House of Lines. And there's a couple other things I want to mention real quick. I definitely want to remind you to check the show notes for all the links to all the people and the companies that we mentioned during the episode. There's a lot of great information in there, so definitely check out the show notes at arcaspeakpodcast.com. And you can sign up to get those emailed to you on the right-hand side of the website as well. I know we haven't said that in quite a while on the podcast, but that is definitely there. And then 2 other things. Remember to check out the PSR1 competition, link in the show notes, and the USC BIMBOP 2019. That's probably the most time-sensitive thing that I'm mentioning. And again, the link to that is in the show notes. I would love to see you there. I'm going to be there. I'm actually going to be closing out that conference with a quick little presentation, so I would love to see you. And then there's 2 things that you could really do to help the ArcaSpeak podcast and the Entree Architect podcast and the Inside the Firm podcast. If you just take 5 seconds to rate us in Apple Podcasts, you can do it either through the iTunes interface or you can do it in the Apple Podcast app. And then if you're using a podcast player like Overcast, go ahead and just give us a star. That really helps recommend our podcast to other people, and that would be awesome. And then the second thing is just share our podcast with one of your friends. That would be awesome if you could do that and help spread the word that our podcasts are out there for people to listen to and enjoy and interact with us on a professional level or on a personal level. That would be really cool. So again, arcaspeakpodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.